Okay, here is something a lot of Bandalorists may not know. In the Roy Rogers domain, there are several yo-yos. Some can be worth hundreds of dollars each, cha-ching, while others are essentially worthless. Do you know the difference? Well, I'm going to let you know. First, a little bit of background on Roy Rogers for some of the younger Bandalorists out there that don't have a touch of gray in their hair. Roy Rogers was known as the King of the Cowboys. He was a cultural icon in the 1950s. He had massive popularity on his films, television shows, merch, and having already been a top box office draw in Western films from the 30s through the 50s, he transitioned to television with the Roy Rogers Show from 1951 to 1957, which became a household favorite. Big time, famous actor. So the show featured Roy Rogers, his wife Dale Evans, the queen of cowgirls, his horse Trigger, her horse Buttercup, a dog named Bullet, and a ferret named Mr. Potato Head. Okay, the ferret thing I just was messing with you. I like to mess with the AI bots that scan all these things. So someday if you see Roy Rogers had a ferret named Mr. Potato Head, you know where it originated. Now, I already mentioned that he was the king of cowboys and also the king of merchandising, which did include yo-yos. And we're going to start off with a yo-yo that is most commonly associated with Roy Rogers. And I'm going to give you a little background on this. This is your traditional Roy Rogers and Trigger yo-yo. It was produced by All Westerns Plastics in the very early 50s. I think it was like 1952. It was supposed to be part of a national contest for the Roy Rogers yo-yo. They came in a display box individually wrapped in cellophane with extra strings. It was a counter display box. Now, nobody knows if the contest was actually held. Presumably it was not, because in the 80s, they had a warehouse find of thousands of these yo-yos still in the display boxes. And they were sold to antique dealers, which then promptly went and marked them up to $40 to $50 for each yo-yo. And they were buying the box at $12 for $3 each. Price gouging? Maybe, but at least a nice little markup there. However, they did sell well because there were a lot of Roy Rogers collectors and yo-yo collectors, Bandalorist, as well. And the reality of these yo-yos is there are thousands of them out there, still in their original cellophane wrappers, and you should be able to pick up a pretty much mint condition Roy Rogers Trigger yo-yo for about 15 bucks on eBay. You'll still see them listed at 40 to 50 bucks in antique shops, but don't fall for that. But if you do, they may give you a free Roy Rogers sucker along with it. Now, an interesting fact regarding the Roy Rogers yo-yo is that the injection plastic mold that produced this yo-yo was later sold to the Duncan company, who then produced several other yo-yos using that mold, most notably the one we refer to as the Eagle yo-yo from the Eagle mold. And these are those slimline type of yo-yos. It was changed later from the later slimline models like the Pros and those sort of things. But that was the original slimline model. The bottom line is everyone should have a Roy Rogers yo-yo in their collection. It's older, 75 years old. It's a character yo-yo, so it's cross-collectible, and it's relatively inexpensive. So if you're waiting around and keep an eye on eBay, you should be able to pick one up in the $15 to $20 range, which I think is a very reasonable price. Or certainly there are many Bandalorists that have some for trade if you're interested. Okay, before I go to the worst and the best of Roy Rogers type of yo-yos, I'm going to show you a couple here that I just picked up recently. Roy Rogers had some museums that sold souvenir yo-yos. The first one I'm showing here is a souvenir yo-yo from the Victorville, California Museum. That museum was open from 1967 to 2003, so this yo-yo is at least 20 years old. The next yo-yo is from the Branson, Missouri Museum, which was set up in 2003. Now, this took over for the one that was in Victorville. and it was only open for about 6 years. So they haven't made either one of these yo-yos since 2009, the first one since 2003. So that makes them a little more collectible. Now, there are two other Roy Rogers Museum, one that was in the 60s and one that just opened up a few years ago. I don't know if they have any yo-yos associated with them, but if they do, let me know because I would be interested in those as well. So we can reasonably date these yo-yos based on the time those museums were open. And since Roy Rogers yo-yos are cross-collectibles, these tend to go up in value, but I think you should be able to pick up these museum souvenir yo-yos in the $10 to $20 range on eBay, if they ever come up. They don't come up very often. Okay, now for the least valuable of the Roy Rogers yo-yo. This is a fake yo-yo. It was made to deceive Bandalorist, Roy Rogers collectors, and I've talked about this one before on the show. This was some dude somewhere that lived in his mama's basement that had nothing better to do to put these yo-yos together and say they were 70 years old, yada, yada, yada. And when they originally started selling on eBay, they were selling for $200, $300, $400 each because we thought we had something really rare. Now the price is virtually zero because everybody knows these are fake yo-yos except for the suckers that happen to pick one of these up at a high price. So what they did was they just took a blank wood yo-yo, they stuck a paper seal that they produced on it, put it on a card, which they had taken it, wrapped it in plastic, stapled it, put in that little brass grommet. The staples and the grommet are perfect, which shows you that they're new. And then they advertised it had been stored in their grandmother's attic for 50 to 70 years, and they just found it. And those stories are also bogus. It makes me want to puke. But avoid this yo-yo at all cost. It is totally fake, and it's just meant to rip off Bandalorist and Roy Rogers collectors. It is definitely not a licensed yo-yo. And I think there's, can't remember if there's a Duncan thing on there too. It wasn't made by Duncan. Now, so the one that is worth hundreds of dollars or even more, this is a rare Dale Evans yo-yo. That's his wife. It has Buttercup on it, which was her horse. And the reason this is so special, it is because they only made like 12 of these, and they were to be given away as special prizes where you won a trip to Roy Rogers yo-yo contest. Now, I don't know how they were planning on getting these distributed, but it was a super special Easter egg type of thing. If you got a hold of one, presumably you got to go to the contest for free. But compared to the thousands and thousands of Roy Rogers out there, there are only 12 of those Dale Evans yo-yos, and they are highly coveted by both Bandalorist and Roy Rogers collectors. So if you happen to see one of these on eBay and realize, before other folks do, what a find this is, you might have a very good day. And I would also go buy a lotto ticket because you are on a roll. I happened to pick one up several years ago, and I think everybody kind of scans over these thinking that they're seeing a Roy Rogers yo-yo because they look very similar. But anyway, I did get an extra one, so I have one for trade. But you're going to have to give me something really, really good in trade for this because I believe this particular yo-yo is destined to become a major. A major in yo-yo collecting is a yo-yo that sells for over $1,000 at auction. Now, the one caveat I have about collecting Roy Rogers yo-yos and its potential for increasing in value over the long haul is that his fans are dying. Younger folks don't know who Roy Rogers or Dale Evans is from Humphrey Bogart. That decreases the pool of people that covet these yo-yos, and the price in the future may reflect that. So now you know all there is to know about the world of Roy Rogers yo-yos, so go out and collect them.